Well, about a week ago, Halloween returned to Guild Wars 2, and this is quite nice because Path of Fire is just released. We've had a big population spike, people we might not have experienced for a long time, and all the incremental small changes that have been filtered in over the years, and so there should be a lot to do and a lot to have fun with, especially considering the devs seem to have put quite a lot of new stuff in. Specifically, if you have Path of Fire, you can do some fun new stuff in the Labyrinth, and there's an extension to a very old storyline that I don't think we've seen for a while, involving the back pieces. So this video shouldn't be too long. I mean, I've done 5 Halloween videos now. What has been said before probably still counts now, but it would have felt weird to have not done a video this year, right? So let's jump in. First, let's talk a bit about achievements. This is kind of one of the biggest changes, and I really like what they've done here. There are now 4 technically, sections of Halloween achievements, and each of them kind of specializes in doing a different thing. Much like with a lot of Guild Wars 2, if you want to feel complete with the content, really you want to be looking at the achievements UI and working your way through these. So I want to talk to you a little bit about how these go, because it took me a bit to really wrap my head around it. So first of all, we have a section called Halloween Rituals. Halloween Rituals is, in terms of feeling like you're completing Halloween or whatever, kind of ignorable because it's full of infinitely cycling achievements to just go and go and go and go. So any Guild Wars 2 player is probably familiar with the achievement that dings when you salvage, 200 items, and then it goes again, and then it goes again and again and again. And it'll continue giving AP up until a point, and then even the AP will stop. The achievement will keep rolling and counting how many times you've done it, but beyond that, there's really very little reason to go further. There have been a couple of places that Guild Wars has done this. There's an associated one, say, in the dungeons too. Well, Halloween now has that for all the various tasks. So in Halloween, all these pumpkins come down in the world, and carving those will slowly progress this. Eventually, it will complete, you'll get AP for it, and then you can do it again. And then it will complete, you'll get more AP, you can do it again, and on and on and on until even eventually the AP goes away. Halloween Rituals is full of achievements just like that, and you might think, wow, this sounds really boring, but this is more for people, I think, on the achievement leaderboards, who are really interested in getting a lot of AP, because there was a ton of AP that came in on this festival. I believe people said that there was about 1,000 AP from the Path of Fire expansion, about 1,000 to do everything in Path of Fire. And if you do everything in Halloween, and I'm not saying it's easy with these rituals, but if you do everything in Halloween, it's like 700. So, you know, it's a huge chunk of AP. For what it's worth, even for non-achievement hunters, I like stuff like this in the game. It's like when I was casually playing Guild Wars 2 and completing events on my first ever playthrough on my first character. It felt nice to know that whenever I completed a dynamic event, it was dinging an achievement somewhere and I was making more and more progress. And the experience does get a little bit more hollow when that finishes. Well, these don't have finite ends, and I think that that's pretty fun. So that's rituals. There's really not too much else to look at there. I've done so few of them myself, because it's not the main focus. Moving on, though, now we get some more interesting ones. Another section, okay, is called the Lunatic Wardrobe. Now, this is new. And what this is a selection of achievements that you get for completing various aspects of Halloween content just once. So I'm not talking about like repeatable things like carving pumpkins necessarily, but I'm talking about, hey, if you manage to beat the clock tower jumping puzzle, you will get one of these Lunatic Wardrobe achievements. If you manage to beat the mini dungeon where you fight against the Mad King, you'll get one of them. If you manage to do a race in the Labyrinth, more on that in a second, you'll get one of them. And so, yes, it's called Lunatic Wardrobe because what this means is when you complete these one-time only achievements, they actually give you a new set of Halloween armor. I think this is really nice to have put into Halloween. Obviously, one of the big criticisms with the game being Fashion Wars 2, people care about having lots of skins, and quite often, with Heart of Thorns, certainly there was a lot of complaints that it didn't have enough armor. Path of Fire's had that a little bit, but there have been more armors. Well, immediately after POF, they dropped in a new set for Halloween. So there's 18 pieces to go for. There's a distinct one for medium, heavy, and light. I've only got the light set right now when I completed this selection of achievements, which you can see in the background there. It's kind of very simple looking, and I know that'll put a lot of people off. I personally asked on Twitch, hey, do you guys like the simple stuff? And it seemed like a lot of people did. At the end of the day, this is more of a mix and matching thing for a lot of people. And what you're looking at with me there is undyed, so don't judge it too by That's just sort of how it comes by default. So yeah, Lunatic Wardrobe, I think this is really good. Basically, what I'm telling you guys is if you've never played Halloween, go in-game, look at the festival section, and just aim to complete the Lunatic Wardrobe section. Because what that will do is take you through all the dramatic different pieces of content and allow you to feel complete with them, and you'll come out with an armor set at the end of exotic quality, which is pretty damn good. Beyond that, finally, there is another new achievement section. And what this is it's a lot like the rituals, but instead of infinitely going and going and going, they don't infinitely go. So this is stuff you can complete, and I would recommend people do try to complete. But it's stuff like, okay, carving pumpkins now, right? So carve 150 pumpkins, and that's finished and done for good. And while you work on this one, it will also work on the rituals in the background too, which are a bit harder. Or it's stuff like close 30 doors, for example. So it's still participate in Halloween stuff, but you can complete and finish this. And you probably want to do this anyway, because completing these achievements unlocks NPC dialogue in a new kind of quest chain collection that they've added, which I'm going to talk about in just a second. So that's the last selection for you. And yeah, I would recommend you finish Shadow of the Mad King and you finish Lunatic Wardrobe. And with that, you're going to feel like you've pretty much tasted what Halloween has to offer. So like I said, within Shadow of the Mad King, you'll also notice a couple of other achievements that direct you to NPCs. Long-term Guild Wars 2 players will recognize what this is. In the first year of Halloween, and I think maybe the second, I'm not quite sure how it worked anymore, but in the early years of Halloween, you could actually do a kind of a quest chain using primitive Living World Season 1 style technology that they had in the game, with like these golden stars that would be dropped on the map, and you'd have to run around and try and intuit where to go because they would never add a formal quest log style thing. Well, nowadays they've got collections, and they've got collections UI, and they've really refined it and done very well with Path of Fire. Recently this week I did a video about all the lore and amazing stuff that comes with getting the Griffin and how that's done, and it's kind of using a lot of that stuff. So those back pieces went away for a long time. I happen to know that you could have earned these backpacks, deleted them off your character, off of your account for some reason, but before the wardrobe system came in. And what that could have meant is that you actually finished this content years and years and years ago, but you never had the skins unlocked in your wardrobe, which would have been really sad. Well, now you can go back, and I'm not sure if this is the first opportunity to go back and get those skins or not, because I just had them and kept them the whole time, and I'm a little bit out of the loop with that. But it's fully laid out now, and it's laid out using current Guild Wars 2 tech, and it's pretty fun and pretty easy to understand. You look at one of the achievements, it will direct you to an NPC, you go to the NPC, you speak to them, you get a bit of story, and then you look back at your achievement UI and you mouse over the little slots and it gives you hints as to where to go. So it's kind of a mix of a quest and a scavenger hunt style thing, where you're traveling around the region of Kryta trying to learn about Mad King Thorn's history. And you get quite a lot of lore with this as well. A lot of the lore that we've already had because it's been there in previous years, but where this gets really exciting is they actually expanded on it. So there are various mechanics you can play with, by the way. There's a candy corn detector that you'll pick up, and you need to double click it to scan the areas to find strange things that then summon ghosts, and then you speak with the spirits and you learn about all these horrific things. It's Halloween content, so it's all very grim and dark and scary. It was really fun actually for me to play back through, because even though I had this stuff done in terms of having the skin unlocked already, I now get more AP for completing it under the new version. So I get to do this for the first time in a long time, and it was a bit of a nostalgia bomb, really, which is scary to think about, because in so many ways I still think of Guild Wars 2 as a very new game, and I was feeling genuine, powerful nostalgia playing back through this stuff. But yes, there is a new tier. In fact, there's two new tiers to the back piece itself. So there's another layer to the quest, if you will, and I'm using that in inverted quotes. And then once you have that, by the way is the backpack you've been seeing me wear on my characters in the background, you can use the Mystic Forge to upgrade it even further. And that's something I've not done just yet. I believe that was a hidden recipe, a bit like when they added Night Fury with Heart of Thorns' original release. So the new tier of the quest is a bit more simple. It doesn't have the candy corn detector. It doesn't have that stuff going on. It's instead of traveling around Lion's Arch or traveling around Kryta as the other rungs were, this one is mostly speaking to Halloween NPCs. And there's been a bunch of new Halloween NPCs added, and some of them are even mounted. So there's like a new Choya in the Labyrinth, a character from the original game called Bruce the Herald, who was a Necrid horseman, is actually in the sequel now. He's running around in Lion's Arch of 250 years later, but instead of riding on a Necrid horse, he's riding around on a Springer with the Halloween skin, which definitely made me smile to recognize him coming back. And so you're going to speak to Bruce, and you're going to speak to several of these other new NPCs and even established ones, asking them about Mad King Thorn. You do get some juicy details. There's some references to Joko and the grudge between Thorn and Joko. The devs didn't go as far with this as maybe I was looking for, but they did do it, at least, which is nice. In fact, one of the tasks for completing this quest is you need to kill X number of awakened Joko's army. And this might seem really weird for people without Path of Fire. Halloween is a core event. If I don't have Path of Fire, how am I going to kill Awakened? But the devs actually resolved that by adding Awakened to areas of the world that are as close as possible to the Crystal Desert, like Mount Maelstrom. So apparently you can find Awakened in Mount Maelstrom to complete this, even if you're not a Path of Fire player, which is really good of them, actually. And it will be interesting to see if those Awakened stay there even after Halloween leaves. So you get a little bit more on their grudge. Some of the most fascinating stuff, though, was hearing that the Mad Realm existed before Oswald got there, and the castle had even already been constructed, I believe they suggest, and that he just kind of went and inhabited it, and the idea of the Mad Realm's relation to chaos and chaos magic and what it is, it's all very, very, very fun. So I really recommend you guys go off and play that. And by the end, you'll get a really nice new backpack out of it. I will say the level 3 to the quest, the new one that they've added, what it's doing is requiring you to complete those aforementioned achievements I talked about earlier, like carving 150 pumpkins or closing 30 doors. So probably the most grindy bit, if you will, is to do the 150 pumpkins. But if you're playing a lot of Halloween anyway, and mainly in the Labyrinth, where there's tons of renewably respawning pumpkins, if you're doing that anyway, you're going to get those, I believe, just through the natural course of playing. If you're a new player and you're looking for 250 gold for the Griffin or whatever, you know, gold you've got from Path of Fire, some of these new elite specialization weapons, whatever, the Labyrinth is a really good farm. And it only got faster this year with power creep and with mounts, okay, that allow you to move from door to door quicker and quicker and quicker. So, and if you're in a group that's actually trying to tag the specific big bosses in there, it's even better, if your squad is capable of killing them. So you're going to be in there anyway. You're going to be getting those pumpkins anyway. And that sort of allows the quest to happen pretty easily as well. And you come out of it with a back piece. So those are kind of the big things. There were some other changes as well for Halloween. Not too much more to say now, though. So dailies did change a bit. When I said there's 3 sections to the new sections for achievements, there's actually kind of 4. Because there's a daily, a Halloween daily thing. And this is the Super Adventure Box format, really, where every day you want to go in, do your daily, and after like 3 days in a row, I think it is, they'll give you a weapon. Just like how you could get the Super Adventure weapons for doing the Super Adventure Box dailies frequently. I guess ArenaNet must have found that this was good for keeping playtime up on people. And there's a whole set of haunted weapons you can go for. And that's just from going in and doing the daily each time. The daily is usually pretty simple, and you'll be doing in tandem with all your other stuff. Some other changes to the Labyrinth. So the Labyrinth does allow you to mount in. I guess the devs realized that most of Halloween content is in the Labyrinth, and it would have felt bad if players went immediately from earning these shiny new mounts in a new expansion to not being able to use them in the next new hotness. So they tweaked the Labyrinth to allow for the mounts, and we're kind of clear about the rules. So you can fly around at max speed on your Griffin and kind of totally break it and move really quickly, which is super fun. You can ride on a Springer and jump over the walls as you please. But here's the thing. You can't stand on the walls. And this is true for people who are gliding in there as well. If you decide that you're going to stand on a wall, the Mad King won't like that, and he'll teleport you out. So you can fly around out of bounds, but you cannot stand around out of bounds, if that makes sense. And hopefully I've demonstrated that in the footage in the background well enough there. Not only this, but they added some special content too. There is a new race, a Halloween race. It's one of the things you're required to do to get one of those achievements from earlier, the Shadow of the Mad King ones. So it starts in the center, and then you're going to charge around. This is a fun race because there's lots of players in the Labyrinth all the time. It's kind of how I imagine if Adventures had been added throughout Living World Season 3, Adventures might have felt. Just because so many people will be there. And there's dailies associated with that, so people go back. I think the one that you're looking at in the footage here, 130 people had already finished before me. Was that it, or was it 32? I can't remember. There's a low player cap to the Labyrinth as well, so I'm not quite sure how things work. But you can charge around, run in that race. There's an achievement not for coming first, second, or third, which I guess they figured would be too competitive and frustrating for people. But there's an achievement for completing the race under a certain time window, which I believe is like 2 minutes, and it's fairly easy to do. I finished the race here on the Jackal, but the Raptor is also perfectly viable as well. And they've added some cute NPCs around there. There's a Choya geared up inside a pumpkin who's a racer who like rolls around, I guess, which is very fun to see. So some other stuff with Halloween. This isn't exactly new, but the Lunatic Inquisition did return, and I played it for the first time in a long time this year. I even had someone teach me on Twitch how to do that crazy Easter egg where you take the hammer and you use the hammer to hit the wall to get a boulder, to throw the boulder at the pumpkin, to take the pumpkin to use on a teleporter to turn into a jack-o'-lantern to give to the Mad King to get a rifle. And that was pretty fun to do. It's a shame there's no achievement on that. But I recommend you guys go in there and play Lunatic Inquisition, because there's an interesting insight into early combat design for Guild Wars 2 and all the ways that they could have taken this product. Of course, the way that they ultimately took it was elite specializations and so forth, but it's fun to look back at that. Reaper's Rumble does not return. I already mentioned this in a previous video, but I'm going to go on about it again. I loved Reaper's Rumble. Come on, let me play Reaper's Rumble. 1 year, please. But that did not return. That was more of a significant MOBA-style PvP kind of instance. And the other thing that's not here, I think, is the Bloody Prince story and stuff we could do in the Black Citadel tomb. But Mad King Thorn's instance from the first year and all of that's there. So yeah, there you go. That's Halloween, really, guys. Like I said, not a huge video, but there is a lot of new stuff going on. I'm very pleased that the devs did that. I guess I'm looking now to see what they do with Winter's Day and whether the current events team and the festival team, if they want to be known as instead, I guess, whether they'll be able to get something out in the middle of these two gaps. Next, for big updates for the game, I think we're all looking out for a balance update, which is, what is it, next week? Someone will say in the comments. I think it's next week, or maybe it's the week after. We will have to see. And then it's looking like maybe a raid wing, and then it's looking like Living World Season 4. And lots of fun stuff coming up. So there you go, guys. Let me know if I missed anything for Halloween that really grabbed you, but I think this is the new stuff. These are the new details. If you want even more understanding of this, just check out all my videos I've done on in previous years. And until next time, guys, I hope you've been enjoying yourself. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you shortly.